I'm Travis Brown, founder and CEO of Mojo Marketing and Media. And this is my podcast, where I talk to the most successful Black and brown business executives who've broken through the barriers of today's business culture. Welcome to the Diverse and Talented Podcast. I'm your host, Travis Brown, and today I get to sit down with a Super Bowl champion, a business owner, restaurant owner, an entrepreneur, a realtor, and of course, a Super Bowl champion. Gary Brackett, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
So I got to ask, so you've done a lot of things in your world from a business perspective, so how did you get full circle to do all the things that you're doing? Because you got your hands in a lot of things that you're always working on developing.
Yeah, I think for me is I got a lot of passion projects, things that I'm passionate about. Real estate is something I've always been passionate about. Funny story, I remember being in college, listening to like Robert Kiyosaki like late night, right? And I remember like being broke, but I think you could buy that program and send it back 30 days, right? So I remember taking this program, going to the library, like printing it out and then returning it, right? So I've always been passionate about real estate. And if you look at like all the successful, wealthy people, that's kind of where a lot of their, assets reside, right? So that's been something that I've always kind of had an eye on. Now acting more as a realtor, working with a lot of investors, flipping properties myself. So that's something I think is always going to be there and sustained. Yeah. The speaking side, we talk about it all the time, is something that I'm also passionate about. Earlier she asked me, like, how'd you feel retiring from the NFL and like the feelings of emptiness, and the one thing I loved about being an NFL was being an entertainer and being on stage. And speaking kind of gives you some of that. 100%. So I think that's great. The coaching I kind of put to the back burner a little bit as I'm building the real estate stuff out a little bit more. But really my main job, I tell people, is just being a dad. 3 active kids, want them to be excellent in school and also athletics. So that takes a lot of my time as well.
I know a lot about your journey, but some people may not, So let's go back and start. There's a time you're running out of the tunnel onto a field where you're in the Super Bowl. And, I got to imagine that may be the highest of highs. So first of all, talk about what is that moment like? You're playing in a Super Bowl, like this is the pinnacle of most, guys' career. What was that emotion like?
Man, I think Tony Dungy that week said it's a regular season game with the whole world watching. And for us, walking out, I was a captain, and walking out for the coin toss, just the amount of cameras that are just flashing, right? And really at that point, I'm like, the magnitude of that moment of being in the Super Bowl. And I realized how many people play their whole career and never get to a Super Bowl. So very blessed I have been to one. Equally, or even worse, losing the Super Bowl.
I was going to ask you, is do you have more excitement on the one you won or more heartbreak for the one you lost?
Definitely the one you lost. And that's like, exit stage left. Yeah. Crazy story, I still have a record of the most solo tackles of any player in the Super Bowl in that one against the Saints. So bittersweet, I had a great game, but obviously losing the Super Bowl is like one of the worst feelings in the world.
When you think about this correlation between sports and business, I think for those of us that have played both, we kind of have a feeling about them both. You played at a completely different level, the highest of high. What's the correlation between what it takes to be successful in football or sports and business?
Man, I think a lot of it is played from the neck up. I think it's your mindset. I think it's your ability to withstand success and both failures. And I think, on the field, you have to do it real quick because there's another play coming. Yeah. In business, there's a next month coming and there's more bills rolling in. So I think both arenas.
Amen to that.
Right? You got to be mentally tough. And you got to think, this is my vision, this is my long-term plan, and this is what I need to commit to in order to make that happen. And I think the great athletes really have that mental fortitude where they can have, Steph Curry, he'll shoot 0 from 6. But the game online, he's still like, let that thing go. Give it back to me.
And how do you have that as an athlete? How do you have that mindset, enough confidence to believe that like I can go 0 for 6, 0 for 9, but I'm in the huddle going, the ball's going nowhere else but me if I'm Steph Curry, right? To have that commitment to going, I'm still the one, I'm still him. Like, how do you build that?
Their mindset is built because of the habits and the work that they put in. So some athletes and some business owners, they just want to wish for it. But the greats work for it. And putting in that work is always going to tell me, like, hey, like I trained for this moment. Right, I'm prepared at any given moment for this thing to go my way. So I think the difference when you look at those guys is like training for it and mentally preparing yourself. Like you don't know how many times you get a basketball in your driveway. It's 3, 2, 1, and you let that thing go. Right? It's the same thing in business. Like if you go into a meeting with Eli Lilly, you go into a meeting with these big companies. Like, and then I'm going to say this, and they're going to give me this objection, and then I'm going to close them with this.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the same thing. Like that vision and visualizing that success, and then like living it out. You just
and the adrenaline, it kind of gives you a little bit of that adrenaline. You said it's funny about the shots. My son and I were in a driveway this past week, like doing that same thing, like over and over and over. Right. Shots this, and you got to give him he got fouled. All right, now you got the line. Now you're at the line. Okay, lost game 1. So going through all that. Outside the Super Bowl, what's one of your most fondest like moments as a NFL guy?
Man, I never forget this. So my first game in my NFL career preseason was Chicago, and they were playing Illinois because they were rehabbing their facility. And I was told, hey, you're going to play special teams probably in the fourth quarter, but be prepared anything can happen. All right, this is the preseason. I'm like, all right, cool. Second ever time in my life at an NFL stadium. Like I went when I was 18 in high school to the Eagles, and like we paid $50 a scalper ticket. We was in the highest seat in the building, right? So I'm in the stadium. The first play drive, our middle linebacker gets hurt, Jim Nelson. Now they're on the sideline, and they're talking. Defensive coordinator Ron Meeks is there. They're speaking. He's nodding his head. He's like, yeah, I agree. Okay, cool. Gary, you're in. And I was like, what? Right. So then I went from just playing special teams in the fourth quarter to going out there with the starters, first string, the next.
Calling defense.
So that moment, it was just like, again, because I trained, because I prepared, I was out there, and it was just like, it just felt natural to me. Being in that leadership position, knowing like on the football field, like I'm going to work. So if any time I'm going to say, hey, follow my lead, it's going to be out here. And I think that's why my teammates always rock with me and always like voting me as a captain. It's like, look, this dude going to show up every day and he's going to put in like, put in the work. Whatever that is, whatever that looks like for me, right, we can all max out on what our potential is, but I'm going to give you everything I got.
And that comes from like, all the way from a high school kid to even, going to Rutgers. You weren't a scholarship player initially, right? So talk about, because I think there's a moment there that kind of happened that sound like maybe propelled some of that in you that showed up later. What was that? Take me back to that spot in Rutgers.
Yeah. So I was a walk-on. I get a call one morning, my third year, and it's my father, and he was like, hey, I got bad news. Your tuition bill came, and I can't afford it. He's like, we refinanced our house twice. There's no more equity left. We don't have the funds to pay for your education. So I went to my position coach, was like, hey, coach, man, I just want to let you know, like, thanks for the opportunity. I'm not going to be able to play. I can't afford it. It was like, tuition, like you ain't on scholarship? Like, you're second team on defense. You're starting on special team. Like, what are you talking about? I'm just like, I'm a walk-on. So he was like, all right, man, well, no promises. I'll talk to the head coach, see what he can do for you. But so that night, I don't hear anything. So I'm like, I packed my bags. I had a Honda Excel, like hatchback, you know what I'm saying? I tell people it shook when I drove it, right? I got some residual bicep effect. But the next morning, the head coach, Terry Shea, called me to his office. He called me to his office, and when I walked in, shaking my hand, hey, coach, man, thanks for the opportunity. He was like, hey, I just want to let you know I'm going to recruit players that are bigger and better than Gary Brackett. And I was like, damn, I thought we were just going to say bye or whatever. But he was like, but you know what? You give me 100%, you leave it on the field, and I wish I had more Gary Brackett. So somebody just fell out of school, I'm going to give you a scholarship. And that moment really just changed my life, because it's like, man, I'm actually going to be able to finish this thing. And then going inside the locker room, I'm high-fiving on the teammates, 100 people working out. And I never forget Wesley Robinson. He was like 6'3", 250, 6% body fat, big old dude, right? And he's like, hey, what's the noise? What's going on? I was like, yo, I got a scholarship I get to say. He was like, scholarship? You should worry about starting. And in my head, I never thought about being a starter. Initially coming in, I'm like, I want to be a starter. I want to be the man. But after life beat you down, you're like, bruh, I just want a meal plan. Like,
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I just want one of the pale grade checks. I just want something. But that night, I couldn't sleep. And it was just like, it kept on repeating my head, you should be the starter. You should be the starter. And I was like, all right. So I made a deal with myself, like, what would I need to do to be the starter? So I started making out this list of what I need to do. So I work harder, watch more film, go to practice early. And then the next day, I committed to that list. And like you said, that changed my whole life. Because then you realize, like, yo, you can really visualize and work towards the life you want to create for yourself. And that's, for me, was such an inspiration, because it's like, man, I don't just gonna sit here and talk about what I want to do or what I want to become. I could actually put in the work and become that dude.
And in the business world today, because I know when you're on stage speaking, you use a lot of those stories and examples to really relate back to CEOs, executives, business owners, up-and-coming professionals, to understand that. So what's the translation to that people are often missing in the business world?
I think in the business world, I think people don't always understand the difference between leadership and management. And I think a lot of times the leaders of the company are just managing the people. They're not inspiring them. They're not igniting a flame inside of them. They're not compelling the organization with a vision so big that someone's gonna come to you with fresh ideas because you've set forth a vision.
Yeah.
They're just saying, like, all right, you gotta come to work 9 to 5. All right, just make sure you put your hours in. All right, you got that paperwork. All right, send it in. Make sure you check. So they're not really inspiring these people. And I think you can tell the difference in companies when people aren't led, they're managed.
Yeah.
And I think for me, just want to get people into the mindset, like, one, the first person you need to lead is yourself, because you can't be a 5-6 as a person and have a 7-8 as an organization. And next, your organization has to see you leading from the front and being out there sharing the message, the mission, and living those out.
John Maxwell always used to talk about the law of the lid, and an organization can't outgrow the leader, And I think even in our trajectory, there's been times that our organization has stalled because of me, because of the lid of where I was and what I was going through. And I think from a leader's perspective, like trying to figure out how can I be more so that we can be more, and having that mindset, which made me think about this. Tell me your opinion. So our guy Dion, man, I love what Dion's doing football, but he always talks about the difference between leaders and dogs. That all leaders aren't dogs and all dogs aren't leaders, So he always talks about the difference between, like, some guys are out there, they're leaders and they lead people and they do a great job. And some are just the go-getters, they just go happen, but they don't really think about other people. When you think back to your world, were you more of a leader or more of a dog?
Both of them. So here's the thing, right? So it's a rare person that could be both. Right? Because, so I was a player, like, leader, there's captains of the team, the captain's organization. We're in there, they're going to do the right thing. They're gonna say the right thing at the right time, and they're going to do okay. But then there's, like, dogs that are out there that's going to give you everything you want.
Yep.
They're going to make plays when they need to make plays. They're going to, like, game-breaking plays. So it's like, it's tough to be both. Especially, like, as in my position, I was a middle linebacker. But for me, I had the ability to be like, I could go intercept this pass. I could go make this dude fumble, right? So I think for me, I definitely understand the difference. Like, most dogs don't have any interest in being a leader.
Right.
And I would second that to say the organization, our teams that put their dog as leaders usually fail, usually are toxic, right? Because what makes them great is a gift and a talent that everyone doesn't have.
Most people just do not have it. They are different.
You know what I'm saying? They are different. And them, like, looking at you like, why don't you just do this? Like, bro, I can't do that. What are you talking about? And I think, it's rare when someone can actually, be a player coach type of deal. And I was blessed that I was able to play at a high level and lead people. Want to transition to a thought around, you've had tons of success, football.
and you got out of football and you had some successes, but you also had some failures.
Right.
You tried a bunch of different things. Some things didn't work out. Talk about what was one of those big failures. What did you learn from that, and how did that really set you up for what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think obviously being inside the restaurant industry, I had a goal, I had a plan to operate like 20 stores, franchise another 30 of them. At our height in 2020, I had 10, had 7 franchisees, so I was well on my way. COVID came, and it was like out of nowhere, and they shut down basketball, March Madness, everything, right? So unfortunately, I had to close all the restaurants. I had 400 employees at the time, and really jump on a grenade, right? Like financially, it was just a disaster. But I realized going through that was one, I was like doing a lot of things because of what it looked like. And what I know now is like I do things because of how they feel, what they feel like. So I tell people like, don't do it because how I look like, do it because how I feel like. So now when I live my life more authentic about like, yo, what's true happiness? Because when I was in the restaurant industry, I wasn't gonna be happy until like I had 20 stores, 20 franchisees. I was chasing this like, yo, I just had a big win, $30,000 weekend. And you're like, all right, cool. What's on Monday? I'm not even celebrating those victories, right? Because I'm chasing this number in my head. Where now, just like, yo, if my kid scores, 2 points in a game, I'm like, yo, great job.
Yeah.
And just happy that I was there to experience it. So I think for now, just being more present, being more aware, and being more authentic. Like not being places where I'm tolerated, being places where I'm celebrated. And I think that's what I really, live by now. And it's just like so peaceful being in a situation. It's like, yo, I'm authentic. Like I don't have to put on the face anymore.
And what was it in all of that that helped you see that for yourself?
I think we, in our minds, think we are bigger deals than we actually are. We think people actually care a whole lot about us and what we got going in our lives, right? And we think people are really online watching us, checking our every move. Like, people got their own stuff going on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, people don't have the capacity to care because they got their own challenges.
So true.
They got their own adversities. And in our mind, we would get so shook like, oh man, I can't go outside because, this happened, I failed in this business, so they're going to look at me and laugh. They're failing right now. So now I look at it like, yo, I can really be an inspiration and use these losses as lessons as opposed to using them as like burdens and mistakes and something I should be afraid of or ashamed of.
How did you deal with, in the height of that, or maybe even just after the fact, with your kids?
Yeah.
Right? Because as dads, we're always trying to figure out, how do I help my kids? So what were some of the lessons, and what were those conversations like? And were they at an age at that point in time that you could really help them understand who dad was, what dad was going through, and what was important? So
there's been a lot of tough transitions, financially going through the stuff with the restaurant, filing bankruptcy, going through a divorce. I don't think they were really old enough to understand the magnitude of both of those, right? Because I was still present, I was still around, and thankfully, right, I've still been blessed, so they haven't missed meals, right? So they're still doing okay. Recently, though, I'll share something with you. I was training them in my basement on New Year's Eve, and I told my quad attendant, and I was giving them an exercise like I was going backwards, icky shuffle. And when I was doing it, I slipped on the ladder and my knee popped out. So when my knee pops out, right, and it's like back, I had to push it up to make sure it's straight. And they're looking at it like, ooh. And my oldest daughter was like, we're not doing that exercise. Right? So I'm like, but then I had surgery. Forte did a great job. Shout out to them. But the next week, I'm downstairs now in my brace training the kids. And they're looking like, yo, should we still be training? And I'm like, yo, bad things happen to good people. Like, you're gonna handle adversity in life. Like, I'm not jinxed. Stuff happens.
Right.
So we still gonna attack every single moment as if this is all we got. Not gonna be afraid to get injured or any of this stuff. We're gonna get injured. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna let you know this right now. And when it does, we'll deal with it. But up until that point, let's lock in. So that really looked at me because my son, I could tell him he's going through the ladder. He hesitated like, oh, like eggshells. I'm like, nah, bro, we ain't doing that.
Nah. How do you? So like as coach dad, right? And you're in a coach dad box a lot. How do you balance like I want my kid to be him. I'm trying to understand where they are, what's appropriate for their age, but also trying to help them see around corners that are not, and force them to do things, ask them to do things. Like, how are you as coach dad?
I saw Dave Chappelle say something, man, that really resonated with me. He said, for his kids, he said, treat me more as a resource than an authority. So what he meant by that was like, yo, let's have some type of dialogue about this journey that you're on. Because all three of my kids are all unique. They all got different journeys and different lifestyles. And I don't want what I think are my authority telling you what you should be or should become.
Yeah.
I don't want that to shape your life. If you want to be him, there's a level of work that we're going to have to commit to.
Yeah.
Right? And I can help you get there only with your permission. Like my daughter, sometimes she doesn't want to train. I'm like, okay. Like, but what I don't want you to do is complain at a tournament because you're not playing when you're not putting in the work. You can't have them both.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like, I feel like we're still young enough and hip enough with our kids to kind of know what's really going on in their head, right? And call them out on it.
Yeah.
And not in a like making fun of you or punish you type of way, but like, yo, this is reality.
Right.
I love you regardless of what you do, right? But this is how life is going to turn out if you continue to make these choices.
Yeah.
So, and most of the time, when you give them both options, they're like, all right, let's do some work.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I have my 11-year-old, my son's an 8-year-old. Trying to figure them out. Going like, listen, if you want to be like rec level type stuff, like we'll put in rec level work. And if you want to be, travel level, or if you want to be next level up, like you got to dictate that, right? Because I don't want to try to push you to do something you don't want to do. But once you tell me you want X, right, then we got to get on the same page of what it's going to take. So, I haven't seen you coach on the field, but knowing how intense you were as a football player, what does it look like to see Gary on the sidelines, coaching?
It's funny, I almost got tossed from the game this year, yelling at the refs, right? The biggest thing I know we do with this, right? They're 5th and 6th graders, but I'm putting in 25 hours a week. Right, so to hear a ref will say like, it's just 5th and 6th grade football. I'm like, that like grinds my gears, right? It's only kids. I'm like, bro, this is 25 hours a week. You know what lost opportunity this is for me? You know how much time, talent, resource I'm giving these kids?
Yeah.
So for me, I always try to be level-headed with the kids and just try to be simple. I get passionate, right, because I'm a passionate person. But I think it's always like inspiring. I don't like to downgrade the kids or talk bad. I'm probably hella sarcastic. I'm like, or you could just tackle them. Right? Like he was holding me, coach. Like, or you just go up the block and make a tackle. I mean, so I just just try to like lighten up the mood a lot. But yeah, it's hard at 5th and 6th grade to really be that passionate.
And do you coach your girls?
I coached them when they were younger in like soccer, which I really didn't know nothing about. So it was just dad just kicking the ball. But basketball, my ex-wife, we coached one season. We won the championship. That was pretty intense.
With your ex-wife, you coach together?
She was the head coach, so I was just helping her out. And she was a Division I basketball player. So my daughter had like a great play in the last game, made a bucket or something like that. So that was a great, family win. So yeah.
And can you ever sit in the stands and just watch?
Yeah, so I like all the time. Like every weekend, I got 3 or 4 games. It's weird to me now. I don't know if you're in this phase, but when it's a weekend when my kids don't have games, I don't know what to do. I'm like, what do I do with my hands? Like what do I do? So I think now for me, it's just like looking forward to these kids' games and not wanting to miss anything.
100%. My daughter played travel 1 year, and I coached the teams, and it was competitive and like we're grinding. Same way, right? I'm thinking about all the plays. I'm watching film, trying to figure out what some of these teams do. I'm getting on the live streams, watching other team stuff. Like, all right, this is their out of bounds player, right? I'm doing all this stuff, right? And she played. It was competitive, and I love it, right? And then next year she's like, yeah, I don't want to play. So, and I always like, cool, if you don't play, I'm not gonna make you play. But hey, I was mourning. I was like, I walk in the gym like, man, and I see all these people posting pictures of going to these tournaments, and I'm like, I want to be in that tournament. I want to play in that tournament. I want to coach. My wife came to me one day. She's like, I think you're going to have to coach even if Carter doesn't play, right? And now my son is at that point where I'm like, all right, like people are talking about, man, I got all this weekend of sports. I'm like, he's not quite old enough for travel basketball yet. I'm like, I can't wait till we spend all day Saturday, all day Sunday in the gym. We play 5 games. I'm coaching them all because I just, I just love it, right? It's a lot of fun for me. And half the time my practice days are like, that's the best thing that happened to me my entire day. So
yeah, exactly. I look forward to it at night. Like, I'm running this play. Like, what's going on? Like, you closing the transaction. Oh, my bad. What got going on? It's fun though.
So, transition all those things now, with the spot that you're in, with business, kids, life, all that kind of stuff. What's your focus? Like, what's the passion? What's moving you today to get up every day?
Man, I think with the real estate stuff, building that business out smarter, leaner, with like virtual assistants, cold calls from overseas, and really just being more mindful of margins and keeping a high margin business. Speaking is like 100%, 90% margin.
Yep.
So now when I look at my businesses, I'm just looking at the high margin. So if I, could do a real estate transaction, a wholesale deal, make 10, 15 G's, I could sell property, I could speak. It's just like, I want to do high margin activities. So that's kind of where my focus is. And when I'm not doing those activities, I'm kind of building my skill set that I could add value when I am involved in those activities.
All right, Gary, so we're moving to the Mojo hot seat.
Okay.
This is a rapid fire, some questions all over the place here, but it starts with favorite place to vacation.
Miami.
Favorite food at home.
At home, I'm becoming a pretty good cook now, so chicken wings.
And favorite restaurant.
Man, favorite restaurant, I would say Noah Grant's.
Where's that?
Zionsville.
Okay. Favorite shoes.
I know you're a Jordan guy.
I know you got some exclusives in the vault.
Yeah, I do. But Air Force Ones, they like my Rockports. They're like so comfortable for me.
Right. I love that for sure. A brand that you love.
Apple.
Favorite professional sports team. I'm gonna go back and say growing up.
Eagles.
He's an Eagles guy. Favorite college not Rutgers that you like to cheer for, you love to watch.
Not Rutgers. Michigan is kind of growing on me.
Okay. Old school TV show that you watched growing up as a kid.
Oh man, Martin.
An athlete that you'd admire.
That I admire. Athlete that I admire. LeBron James.
An entertainer that you just love to, that you love to watch.
Denzel Washington.
Mac or PC?
Oh, Mac.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Gaming station that you played growing up?
Oh, man, the Atari, when you had to blow it and then put the disc on top of it so it would work.
So it's funny because like the date is like, are you Atari, are you Nintendo, or like Sega, right? Those were like the 3 in that run. Sure. What was the favorite game? You're like, this game was my like.
Contra.
Yeah.
Up down
up down right left.
Select start. Absolutely.
I was like Nintendo, like Mario Brothers, breaking all the records, trying to figure out all the little codes that you had to do to get to the secret things and all that stuff. God. A movie that you love to watch.
Gladiator.
That's mine too. Type of music.
Hip hop.
Like, and do you listen to the new stuff? Or are you like, I'm stuck in like the old stuff.
I tell you now, what has been just going through this life transition has been like gospel, Maverick City music.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if they consider, they're gospel, but like they really like inspire me. Like, so that's usually what I'm listening to.
A great book that you'd recommend.
Oh man, what was it, 50 Laws of Power?
A nonprofit or a cause that you love to support.
Bloom Project. All right, yeah.
My final question, I would say everybody has a start date, a dash, and an end date. When people talk about your dash, what you did for all those years, what do you hope that they ultimately say about Gary Brackett?
I hope people will look at me as someone who believed in themselves. I remember my dad telling me when I was young, like, never let someone's perception become your reality. So I have this ultimate belief in myself and my ability. And when I coach, when I train, I just want to inspire others to have that same belief.
Gary Brackett, man, thanks for coming by and chopping up with me today. You get to do the official, it's a wrap. I put the champ.
Oh, I love it.
I put the champ on there for you.
Mojo podcast right here, champ. It's a wrap.